First, let's head to Douala in Cameroon. One of the problems affecting the metropolis is the shortage of water, especially for the local car wash services, which is believed to waste quite a lot of it. Experts estimate that it takes more than 100 liters of water to clean just one single car, and that is not good. A local startup has proved that environmental, business-friendly activity is a growing market in Africa. Eco Africa takes you on a ride to the car wash.
Sylvain Honang regularly inspects his machines. A local entrepreneur in Douala, he launched his business last year with just a few. Now he has 25 solar-powered car washing kits in operation.
We bring them something new. You know, most of the car wash in Africa, they use a chemical product. This time we are using only natural product to make the car shine.
And they use only 6 liters of water per car, a fraction of the amount used in a regular car wash. The water is dispensed by a solar-powered pump. The pressure can be regulated. Douala often sees water shortages, with taps running dry. It's a mega city with a lot of cars. Standard car washes are a terrible waste of the precious resource. It's estimated that a normal car wash uses approximately 100 liters per car. The company's mobile kits are used by firms and private customers across Douala. Its 22 employees are firm believers in the environmental approach of the business. There's no need to go and charge your batteries at a socket. It's a silent energy source and it's reliable, thanks to the solar panel. Each car wash costs the equivalent of €1.50 and takes about 15 minutes. Customers are impressed.
I noticed that there's a better guarantee for the color of the car, the paint of the car to last longer, because they don't use the sun to scrub the vehicle with. And
more customers are using the service. Whole wash makes about €8,000 each month. Startups in Cameroon are not well supported as they are in Europe.
When you make a business like this and you produce, you have an income, growing income, the bank backs you up. But here, it's really sad, but it's nothing like that at all. They always keep asking you to bring some guarantee, like you need to bring your house paper, thing like that to get the money. And it's a shame. And I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs in Africa are shutting down because of this.
The 40-year-old entrepreneur now wants to expand. He signed a franchising contract with Gabon and will be sending some of his machines there. There'll also be another franchise in Ivory Coast.
So by expand the business everywhere, that will have two aspects: create jobs and also educate population to save water, to protect environment.
Sylvain Honang already has a plan for next year, as Cameroon will host the Nations Cup. The entrepreneur will be submitting a proposal to government, suggesting that during the football tournament, young people clean cars in an environmental-friendly way with his solar washing kits.
Biodiversity is declining at an alarming rate. In 2018, a study showed that population sizes of 42% of known terrestrial and plant species have shrunk considerably. Even the plants that we eat are also in danger. An association in Austria is trying to preserve old varieties of vegetables, herbs, fruit, and grains.
Michel Sure grows 20 different varieties of beans in his garden. Every year he tries out new types. These varieties, he says, were eaten way back in the Middle Ages. These days, many of them are no longer readily available.
I can produce the seed varieties in the quantities that I want. On average, a beanstalk has 3 plants. From one plant, I can get enough seeds for myself and a further 7 or 8 people too.
The Austrian initiative Arche Noah supplies seeds to hobby gardeners. The group wants to preserve as much biodiversity as possible. Many of the older varieties are more resilient than commercially grown fruit and vegetables. The harvests tend to be longer too. More than 60 kinds of tomatoes grow here. Elizabeth Plitzka is responsible for the show garden. These Russian cucumbers can be harvested until late fall. And what's more, they're also resistant to a common fungal disease.
The old varieties haven't been intensely farmed, so there's more genetic variability, a greater range. That's why they're more adaptable. If your genetic potential is too narrow, you can only survive in certain environments, but not in others. Older varieties have this potential.
Christian Schrefel is on a quest to preserve these older genetic types. Over the past 3 decades, he's collected some 5,000 seed varieties. And since they're so robust, they could play an increasingly important role in the process of adapting to climate change. Organic producers and gardeners are also interested in these older varieties. They perform better in soil that hasn't been sprayed with chemical fertilizer.
We're trying to grow these 5,000 varieties in a 5-year rotation. It doesn't always work. We're trying to do 1,000 a year. We always take stock and say, what variety is this? How adaptable is it? What's the produce like? And we document it all.
Birgit Beermann is in charge of the garden at weekends. Visitors come here to discover varieties they've never seen before in the supermarket. They find out how to plant and cultivate them. Touching, smelling and tasting is encouraged here. The aim is to awaken an interest in preserving biodiversity.
Every plant has its own story, its own way of being cultivated. And when you really know a plant, you know these things. Any loss of knowledge is an impoverishment. But when it goes beyond a critical point, society loses out too.
To prevent that from happening, Benjamin Schweighofer is doing his best to spread the word. He's the chef at the Arche Noah Show Garden restaurant and cooks with produce from the garden. Over the last century, there's been a 75% reduction in older forms of crops. Schweighofer is hoping to make them more popular again.
I always say, I've managed to get around quite a bit. I thought I knew most fruit and vegetables, but then I encountered Arche Noah and I noticed I knew only a tiny portion.
He uses his newfound expertise to whip up tasty dishes. They've become known all over the region. Good food and good times. This chef's recipe for preserving biodiversity.